Billionaire poured hot coffee on a black waitress, not knowing the Korean Mafia boss watching was her man. The heat came first, not the kind that lingered politely, like a cup held too long. This was violent, sharp, immediate, an attack rather than an accident. Amara Matthews felt it explode across her wrist and forearm before her mind could make sense of what had happened. A gasp caught in her throat, trapped between pain and disbelief. The cup shattered when it hit the table. Ceramic screamed against marble. Coffee splashed upward, dark and bitter, staining her apron like a bruise spreading in real time. The smell rose instantly, burnt, acidic, suffocating. For a moment, the entire restaurant seemed to freeze inside that scent. Silence followed, not the comfortable hush of fine dining, but a stunned vacuum, thick and unnatural. Amara stood perfectly still, eyes locked on the broken cup, her fingers trembling just above the shards. Her wrist throbbed, skin already tightening, already burning. But that pain felt distant compared to the weight pressing into her chest. I said this was cold. The man's voice cut cleanly through the silence. Amara lifted her eyes. He sat back in his chair like a king inconvenienced by a faulty servant. His suit was tailored to perfection, charcoal gray, Italian cut, cufflinks flashing softly beneath the chandelier light. His hair was silvered at the temples, his expression pinched with irritation rather than guilt. "I'm so sorry, sir," Amara said automatically. Her voice surprised her. Calm, steady, controlled. Years of practice had trained it that way. She bowed her head slightly, the way the restaurant demanded, the way survival had taught her. "I'll replace it immediately." The man looked at her wrist then, his gaze lingering on the reddening skin. His lip curled. "You people are always careless." The words were quiet, casual, effortless. They landed harder than the coffee. Amara felt something inside her tighten. Not snap, not yet, but pull taut like a rope stretched to its limit. She bent slowly, kneeling to gather the broken pieces, with careful fingers. Porcelain bit lightly into her skin, but she welcomed the sharpness. It grounded her. Around her, murmurs began to rise. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else shifted uncomfortably in their seat. No one spoke. This was how it always went. Witnesses without voices. Sympathy without risk. "I asked for a competent server," the man continued, waving his hand dismissively. "Is that too much to expect in a place like this?" "Yes, sir," Amara replied. She always said yes. As she stood, balancing the tray against her hip, she felt it then, a change in the air. Something subtle but undeniable, like the pressure before a storm breaks. The low murmur of the room shifted, not louder or softer, just different. Behind her, a glass touched wood, not slammed, not rushed, placed deliberately. "You will apologize." The voice was calm, low, certain. Amara froze. The billionaire laughed sharply, incredulous. "Excuse me." Amara turned. Near the bar stood a man dressed entirely in black. Not the fashionable black of New York elites trying to look dangerous, but the quiet kind, tailored, precise, intentional. His posture was relaxed, but there was nothing casual about him. He stood like someone who had never needed to prove he belonged anywhere. His eyes were fixed on the billionaire. "You threw hot coffee on her," the man said evenly. "You will apologize." The room fell into complete silence. Amara's heart slammed against her ribs. She had no idea who this man was, but something about him made the space feel smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were listening. "Do you know who I am?" the billionaire snapped, standing halfway from his chair. The man took one slow step forward. "Yes," he said, "and you are still wrong." A ripple of unease spread through the room. The billionaire straightened fully now, anger blooming across his face. "I don't take orders from." "You will," the man interrupted quietly, "or you will leave." No threat, no raised voice, just certainty. Amara watched the billionaire hesitate, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. Power recognized power, even when it didn't understand it. Chairs scraped as people leaned forward. The manager hovered nearby, face pale, caught between money and something far more dangerous. "This is outrageous," the billionaire muttered finally. He reached into his pocket, slammed cash onto the table. I'm not staying in a place that allows this kind of disrespect. He turned sharply and stormed toward the exit. The door closed behind him with a decisive thud. Only then did the room exhale. Amara realized she had been holding her breath. The man in black turned to her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Up close, his presence was overwhelming. Not loud, not aggressive, but controlled, like a blade kept sheathed by discipline rather than fear. His eyes were dark, assessing, but there was concern there too. Real concern. "My wrist," Amara said softly. "It's okay." It wasn't, but she had learned not to make pain inconvenient for others. He frowned slightly. "You should have it treated." "I will." Another lie. He studied her face, as if committing it to memory. Then he nodded once. "It should not have happened," he said. Before she could respond, someone leaned toward him, whispering rapidly in Korean. The man listened, then replied in the same language, his tone clipped but calm. He turned back to her. "My name is Jehun," he said. "If you need anything, tell the manager." Then he walked away. Amara watched him return to the bar, every step measured, every movement precise. The room slowly returned to its rhythm, but something fundamental had shifted. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just split into two parts. Before him, and after. Amara ran cold water over her wrist in the employee bathroom, teeth clenched as the sting intensified. The skin had blistered slightly, angry and red, but she'd seen worse. She'd endured worse. She wrapped it carefully, adjusting her sleeve to hide the bandage before returning to the floor. Her shift wasn't over. It never was, not until it was done. "Are you okay?" one of the servers whispered as she passed. "I'm fine," Amara replied. She always was. By the time her shift ended, the city outside was slick with rain, neon lights bleeding into puddles on the sidewalk. Amara pulled her coat tighter around herself, her wrist aching dully now, exhaustion settling into her bones. On the subway ride home, she replayed the moment again and again, the calm voice, the way the room had obeyed it without understanding why. No one had ever spoken up for her like that, not without wanting something in return. She shook the thought away. People like him didn't cross into lives like hers. Whatever that moment was, it was an anomaly. Temporary. Everything was temporary if you endured it long enough. 2 days later, Amara sat in the manager's office, her hands folded tightly in her lap. "We had a complaint," he said, staring at the desk instead of her face. Her stomach dropped. "About your interaction with a guest." "He assaulted me," Amara said quietly. The manager sighed. "We can't use language like that." She swallowed. "He threw hot coffee on me." "Yes, but nothing," she interrupted softly. Her heart raced, but her voice stayed level. "I did my job. I apologized. I didn't escalate." The manager rubbed his temples. "You need to understand the position this puts us in." Before she could respond, the door opened. Jehun stepped inside. The manager jolted to his feet. "Sir, this is—" "I know," Jehun said calmly. "It concerns her." His eyes met Amara's. "May we speak?" The manager hesitated, then nodded quickly. "Of course. Of course." When the door closed behind him, the silence felt heavier than before. "I didn't know where else to find you," Jehun said. Amara stood slowly. "Why are you here?" "Because what happened to you was wrong," he replied. "And because I would like to offer you an alternative." "Alternative to what?" she asked. "To being treated as disposable." Her breath caught. He extended a card. Matte black. Minimal. His name embossed in silver. "I'm offering you a position," he said. "Temporary. Well compensated. With protections you do not currently have." "Doing what?" she asked. "Working with me." Her instinct screamed caution. "Why me?" Jehun met her gaze steadily. "Because you endured," he said, "and because you didn't lose yourself while doing it." The words settled deep in her chest. "I need time," she said. "Of course." As he left, Amara stared at the card in her hand, her heart pounding. She had no idea that accepting would place her inside a world of power, danger, and devotion she was utterly unprepared for. But for the first time in years, She felt something dangerous rise within her. Hope. Amara stood across the street from the building for nearly 10 minutes before she moved. The tower rose clean and sharp against the Manhattan sky, glass reflecting clouds like fragments of another world. It didn't advertise itself. No bold signage, no ostentation, just quiet, controlled wealth, the kind that didn't need to announce its presence because it already knew it belonged. She checked the address again. This was it. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Every instinct told her this was a mistake. Accepting help from men like Jaehoon Park was how people disappeared into stories that never ended well. But another instinct, older, quieter, more honest, reminded her of the restaurant office, of the manager's eyes sliding away, of the way she'd been expected to absorb humiliation like it was part of her job description. She crossed the street. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of polished stone and something subtle, cedar maybe. Security was present but unobtrusive. No one stopped her. They already knew she was coming. An elevator opened silently. She rode it alone. The ascent felt too smooth, too quick, like crossing a boundary she wouldn't be able to uncross. When the doors opened, she stepped into a floor flooded with natural light. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the river beyond, calm and relentless. Jaehoon stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back. He turned as she entered. "You came," he said. "I haven't said yes," Amara replied. "I know." He gestured toward a seating area. She didn't sit immediately. She wanted to remain standing, wanted to feel like she could still leave. "Before anything," she said, "I need honesty." Jaehoon nodded once, then asked, "What exactly do you want from me?" "To assist me," he said, "to observe, to question, to remind me of the consequences of my decisions." Her brow furrowed. "That sounds like a conscience." A corner of his mouth lifted. "An accurate description. Why can't you hire someone else?" "Because they would be loyal," he said, "not honest." Amara folded her arms. "And you trust me to be honest?" "Yes." She let out a slow breath. "You don't know me." "I know enough," Jaehoon replied. "You were injured and still apologized. You were insulted and did not retaliate. You were offered silence in exchange for comfort, and you refused it." Her pulse quickened. "You've been watching me." "I paid attention," he corrected. She finally sat, her legs feeling suddenly unsteady. "And the danger?" she asked. "You didn't deny that." Jaehoon moved closer, stopping at a respectful distance. "There's risk," he said plainly. "I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. But there is also protection." "That's not a guarantee." "No," he agreed. "But neither is your current life." The words hit home. Amara stared at the river, watching boats cut through the water with purpose she envied. "If I say yes," she said, "I don't belong to you." Jaehoon's gaze sharpened, not with anger, but respect. "If you say yes," he said, "you belong only to yourself." Silence stretched between them. Then she nodded. "1 month," she said. "We tried for 1 month." Jaehoon inclined his head. Agreed. She didn't realize until later that she had just stepped through a door that would never close behind her. Amara learned quickly that Jaehoon's world ran on precision. Meetings started on time. Words were chosen carefully. Silence was used as deliberately as speech. People deferred to him without being asked, their respect tinged with something darker, fear, perhaps, or understanding. She watched from the edges at first, taking notes, observing dynamics. Men twice her size lowered their eyes when Jaehoon spoke. Deals were sealed with nods rather than handshakes. This was not brute force. This was control. "What do you see?" Jaehoon asked her after one such meeting. "That everyone's afraid of disappointing you," she replied. He considered that. "And you?" "I'm afraid of misunderstanding you." Something unreadable crossed his face. Over the weeks, he began asking her opinion more often. About strategy, about perception, about how decisions would land on people who weren't sitting at the table. "You think about the aftermath," he said once. "Someone has to live in it," Amara replied. He studied her like she was a language he was still learning. But power had its costs. Late nights, Quiet phone calls in Korean that ended with Jehun standing motionless, jaw tight, eyes distant. Once, she found him alone in the office long after midnight, the city dark beyond the glass. "You should go home," she said. "So should you." She hesitated. "Do you ever get tired of it?" His laugh was soft and humorless. "Every day." The admission startled her. "You could walk away," she said. Jehun shook his head. "No one ever truly walks away." Amara saw then that his power was not freedom. It was obligation sharpened into armor. And for the first time, she wondered what it had cost him to become who he was. Their relationship shifted subtly, imperceptibly, like seasons changing without announcement. Jehun began bringing her coffee in the mornings, always warm, always prepared exactly the way she liked, though she never remembered telling him. He asked about her mother, about Chicago, about the dreams she used to have before survival took precedence. She asked about his childhood. He deflected, but cracks appeared. One night, as rain lashed the windows, she found him standing in the dark, suit jacket discarded, tie loosened. "They tried to test me today," he said without preamble. "Who?" "Men who believed I'd grown soft." Her chest tightened. "Did you prove them wrong?" "Yes. And I hated myself for how easy it was." She stepped closer, not touching him, just being there. "You don't have to be what they expect when you're alone," she said. His gaze dropped to her hands. "That is where you're wrong." The distance between them felt suddenly fragile. He straightened, stepping back. "You should go home." Amara nodded, but something lingered in the air after she left. A question neither of them was ready to ask. It happened quietly. A car followed her for 3 blocks before peeling away. A stranger lingered too long outside her apartment. A message appeared on her phone with no sender. "You are close to something dangerous." Amara didn't tell Jehun at first. She didn't want to be the liability she feared becoming. But Jehun noticed everything. "You're distracted," he said. She hesitated, then handed him the phone. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as he read the message. "Did anyone touch you?" he asked. "No." "Follow you?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "This is my fault." "It's not," she said quickly. "I chose this. And I failed to anticipate it." He turned sharply, barking orders into his phone. Within minutes, security protocols shifted. Her apartment was reassigned. Her movements monitored. She bristled. "I'm not a prisoner." "No," Jehun said firmly. "You are a priority." Their eyes locked. "I won't disappear into your protection," she said. "If someone is coming, I need to face that reality." Jehun stepped closer, his voice low. "And I need you alive." The words hit harder than he seemed to realize. Something dangerous stirred between them, not fear, not comfort, but a fierce, unspoken bond forged under pressure. The night everything changed was quiet. Too quiet. Amara stood on the balcony of Jehun's penthouse, city lights flickering like distant stars. The air was cool, sharp against her skin. She wrapped her arms around herself, thinking. Jehun joined her, standing close enough that she could feel his warmth. "They won't stop," he said. "The men who sent that message." "I know." He hesitated. "I should distance you." "And will you?" "No." The honesty in his voice made her turn. "Why?" she asked. Jehun met her gaze, something raw flickering beneath his composure. "Because losing you would be worse than any consequence I've ever faced." Her breath caught. The city hummed around them, unaware of the fragile moment unfolding high above it. "I won't be protected at the cost of my voice," she said softly. "You will never be silent," Jehun replied. "Not with me." The space between them vanished. He didn't kiss her, not yet. Instead, he rested his forehead against hers, a gesture so intimate it stole her breath. For the first time, Amara understood the danger wasn't just external. It was falling for a man whose world could destroy her, and realizing she was already halfway there. Amara woke before dawn. The city outside Jehun's penthouse was still half asleep, lights dimmed, traffic reduced to a distant murmur. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the balcony, the confession that hadn't been called one, The way Jehun's forehead had rested against hers, as if he were afraid to lean any closer. She sat up slowly, heart pounding. She had agreed to stay the night only because it was safer. That was what she told herself. What she told him. But safety had nothing to do with the way her skin still tingled, where his presence had lingered. She padded quietly into the kitchen, wrapping a robe around herself. The space was immaculate, all steel and glass, yet lived in subtle ways. An open book on the counter, a coffee mug left unwashed. Proof that the man who ruled rooms also existed alone inside them. Jehun was already awake. He stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking Korean in a low, controlled tone. His shoulders were tense, his free hand clenched loosely at his side. He ended the call as she entered, turning toward her. "You should still be sleeping," he said. "So should you." A pause. "They confirmed it," he said. The message wasn't a warning. It was a probe. Her stomach tightened. A probe for what? "For you." She leaned against the counter, steadying herself. "Because I'm close to you." "Yes." She swallowed. "Then I need to know who they are." Jehun hesitated. "Don't protect me with silence," she said firmly. "That only makes me smaller." Something shifted in his expression. Approval, perhaps, or resignation. "A rival group," he said. "They believe I've grown distracted, that my judgment has softened." "Because of me." "Because of what you represent," he corrected. "A liability they think I will hesitate to lose." "And will you?" she asked quietly. Jehun met her gaze. No. The certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it grounded her. The threats escalated quickly after that. A break-in at a property Jehun owned downtown. A warning delivered through a mutual contact. A photograph slipped under Amara's door. Her walking home, head bowed, unaware she was being watched. Jehun tightened security, but Amara refused to retreat into invisibility. "I won't live like a ghost," she said when he suggested relocating her again. "And I won't bury you because you wanted to prove a point," he replied sharply. The argument crackled between them, raw and unresolved. "You don't get to decide what risks I take," she said. "And you don't get to pretend this is an ordinary situation," he countered. "People die in my world." She stepped closer, eyes blazing. "Then stop pretending I don't belong in it." The words hung heavy. Jehun looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, not as someone to protect, but as someone choosing to stand beside him. "You already do," he said quietly. From that moment on, they moved together. He trained her, not in violence, but awareness. How to read rooms. How to notice what others missed. How to stay calm when fear tried to take over. She learned quickly, too quickly, and that frightened him more than her defiance ever had. It happened late one night, after a meeting that left Jehun uncharacteristically withdrawn. They sat in his study. The city stretched beneath them like a map of consequences. Amara watched him swirl the amber liquid in his glass, untouched. "You're carrying something," she said. He didn't deny it. "When I was younger," Jehun began, "I believed power would protect me from loss." "And did it?" she asked. He laughed softly. "It only taught me how to survive it." He told her then, about his father, about the legacy he hadn't wanted but had inherited anyway, about the choices that had carved him into someone respected and feared, but rarely known. "I don't regret what I've done," he said, "but I regret what it cost me." Amara reached out, resting her hand over his. "You're still here," she said. "That means something." His fingers curled around hers, grip firm but reverent. "It means everything," he replied. The moment stretched, fragile and charged. Jehun leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly, almost tentatively, a question rather than a declaration. When they parted, neither spoke. They didn't need to. The attack came without warning. A convoy intercepted Jehun's car as they left a charity gala, an event Amara had insisted on attending, refusing to be hidden away. The crash of metal against metal shattered the night, glass exploding inward. "Stay down," Jehun shouted. Gunfire cracked through the air. Time slowed. Amara felt Jehun's body shield hers, his arm locking around her as security responded with brutal efficiency. The chaos lasted less than a minute, but it felt endless. When it was over, the street was littered with debris and sirens. Amara was shaking. Jehun cupped her face, eyes frantic. "Are you hurt?" "No," she whispered. "Are you?" He nodded once, jaw tight. Later, in the safe house, the adrenaline wore off, leaving raw fear in its wake. "This is what happens when you're near me," Jehun said, voice hoarse. "I won't let it continue." "You don't get to decide that alone," Amara replied, trembling but resolute. "I was afraid, yes, but I wasn't helpless." "You could have been killed." "So could you," she shot back. "Every day." Silence fell. Jehun turned away, gripping the edge of the table. "I can't lose you," he said. The admission broke something open. Amara stepped forward, placing her hands on his chest. "Then don't push me away. Stand with me." He pulled her into him, holding her like a lifeline. That night, they didn't sleep. They talked. They held each other. They crossed a line neither of them could uncross. Not out of fear, out of choice. Morning light filtered through the windows, soft and forgiving. Amara lay beside Jehun, listening to his steady breathing, the reality of what they'd become settling gently around her. There was no regret, only clarity. When he woke, he studied her quietly. "This changes things," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "It makes them honest." He traced the line of her jaw, reverent. "I will end this." "Not alone," she said. "You're not the only one with strength." He smiled then, not the controlled curve he showed the world, but something real and unguarded. "Neither are you," he said. Together, they began planning, not just survival, but a future neither had allowed themselves to imagine. The rival had underestimated many things, but most of all, they had underestimated Amara Matthews. The city looked different when Amara stopped running from it. From the windows of the safe house, Manhattan stretched endlessly, steel, light, ambition stacked upon ambition. Once, she had moved through it invisibly. Now, it felt like something she could finally face head-on. Jehun stood behind her, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. He looked tired in a way she hadn't seen before, not physically, but emotionally. The kind of exhaustion that came from carrying a life too heavy for one person. "They won't stop," he said quietly. "Not unless I end it." Amara turned to him. "End it how?" He hesitated. "Publicly." Her heart skipped. "You mean expose yourself?" "Yes." The room fell silent. Jehun Park had built his power on precision and shadows. To step into the light meant relinquishing control, inviting scrutiny, dismantling systems that had kept him alive. "And what happens to you?" she asked. "Everything changes," he said simply. Amara searched his face. "Is that what you want?" He met her gaze, unflinching. "It's what's necessary." She nodded slowly. "Then we do it together." His brow furrowed. "You don't have to." "I know," she interrupted. "That's why it matters." For the first time since this began, Jehun looked afraid, not of violence, not of death, but of losing the life he had just begun to imagine. "You could walk away," he said softly. Amara stepped closer. "So could you. But neither of us are." Their hands clasped, firm and certain. The decision was made. The rival syndicate leader agreed to meet. Neutral territory. Private club. Old money. Thick walls. Carefully chosen silence. It was meant to be a negotiation. It was a lie. Amara knew at the moment they entered the room. The air felt wrong, too still, too expectant. Men lined the edges, their attention sharp and hungry. Jehun sensed it too, his posture subtly shifting, his presence tightening. "This is unnecessary," the rival said smoothly. "We can resolve this quietly." "Quietly is no longer an option," Jehun replied. Amara felt the tension spike. "You've grown reckless," the man continued, eyes flicking to her. "Sentimental." Amara stepped forward before Jehun could stop her. "No," she said calmly. "You've grown arrogant." The room stilled. The rival laughed. "And who are you?" "I'm the woman you thought would make him weak," Amara said. "You were wrong." Jehun's sharp intake of breath was the only warning before everything erupted. Guards moved. Weapons flashed. Amara didn't freeze. She spoke. "You want leverage?" she said loudly. "Then listen." Every eye turned to her. "You believe power comes from fear," she continued. "From silence. From people like me staying invisible while men like you decide what's acceptable." The rival's smile faltered. "You poured hot coffee on me," she said, voice steady, "and expected no consequence. That was your first mistake." Recognition flickered. "This ends now," Amara said. "Not with blood, but with exposure." Jehun understood instantly. He raised his phone, pressing a single button. Screens around the room lit up. Records, transfers, names, evidence compiled meticulously over weeks, financial trails, communications, crimes cataloged in cold, undeniable detail. The rival's face drained of color. "You planned this," he hissed. "We did," Jehun said, stepping beside Amara. "And the authorities already have copies." Silence collapsed into chaos. By the time law enforcement arrived, the war was over. Not with gunfire, but with truth. The fallout was immediate. Headlines exploded. Investigations launched. Empires dismantled. Jehun Park's name surfaced everywhere, not as a criminal kingpin, but as the man who brought an entire network into the light. He testified. He surrendered assets. He negotiated cooperation. He lost power. He gained freedom. Amara watched him from the gallery one day as he spoke calmly, clearly, without pretense. There was no fear in him now, only resolve. Later, when the noise faded and the city exhaled, they stood together on a quiet street. "You could have saved yourself," Amara said. Jehun shook his head. "I did." He took her hands. "I spent my life believing love was a weakness," he said, "something that could be used against me." "And now," she asked, "and now I know it's the reason I survived long enough to change." She felt tears sting her eyes, not of sorrow, but release. "I won't disappear again," she said softly. "You never will," he promised. "Not with me." Months later, Amara walked into a building that smelled like fresh paint and possibility. The foundation bore her name. It supported women in service industries, legal aid, medical care, financial counseling. Quiet power, applied gently. Jehun stood in the background during the opening, content to let her shine. He wore a simple suit now, his presence still commanding but no longer hidden. "You did this," he said later. "We did," she corrected. They lived differently now. Smaller spaces, fewer guards, more mornings with sunlight and shared coffee, always warm. Sometimes the past echoed, but it no longer defined them. On the anniversary of the night, everything changed. Amara returned to the restaurant, not as a waitress, as a guest. The manager recognized her, color draining from his face. She smiled politely. "Just coffee," she said. When it arrived, she wrapped her hands around the cup, feeling the warmth seep into her skin. Jehun watched her from across the table. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I finally am." The burn that once marked her had become something else entirely. Not pain. Power. Not survival. Choice. And love, not as protection, but as partnership. Thank you for listening to Billionaire Poured Hot Coffee on a Black Waitress, not knowing the Korean Mafia boss watching was her man. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means the world. Until next time, Red Heart.